Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 16th, 2024 Worcester Township Board of Supervisors Business Meeting. Would you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance?
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My name is Rick DeLello. I'm the chairman of the board. To my left is Lou Betts, who's our vice chair. To my right is Steve Quigley, who's our third member. Over on the side table in the front, we have Wendy McKenna, who is our township solicitor, and John Everts, who is our township engineer. On the back table, we have Christian Jones, who's our assistant township manager, and Dan Domeno, who is our township manager. Does anybody have any informational items for the board or announcements?
Yes, Mr. Chair, this meeting is being video recorded for future broadcast, and the Board of Supervisors met in executive session on September 18th, 2024 for personnel matters.
Excellent. So first and foremost, tonight we're going to have an informational item, which is going to be a presentation pertaining to the 2025 budget. If you're looking on your agenda, we will then move to public comment so that if folks want to make comments regarding the budget presentation, they have an opportunity to do that in the public comment section. So Nicole, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you to update the board, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I just want to begin with a note that this is a draft budget and numbers will change. Beginning with taxes, the budget includes no new taxes and no increase to existing taxes. Worcester Township's real estate rate is proposed to remain at 1/20 of 1 mil, which is presently the lowest municipal real estate tax rate in Montgomery County. As for personnel, at this time, the Public Works Director doesn't believe an additional full-time laborer will be needed in the coming year. Our current complement of full and part-time employees will meet our needs in 2025, and we will review this issue again as we prepare the budget for next year. As for administration, the budget includes the hire of 2 new full-time administrative specialist positions to help alleviate strain on our current staff. These 2 new positions will help improve overall organizational efficiency. Starting with the general fund, first and foremost, this is balanced. At this time, EIT, our primary revenue, is projected to receive $3.5 million. The budget includes $3.4 million in EIT in 2024. The budget includes $250,000 in real estate transfer tax in the coming year. $490,000 is projected for this year. This number assumes the transfers of existing residential properties and no transfers of commercial or larger tracts of land, which historically have occurred on an infrequent basis. As for expenditures, the budget currently anticipates an increase to health insurance premiums, and the amount of that increase will be calculated at the time DVIT confirms the amount of rate stabilization dollars available for use. These numbers should be received by the end of this month. While we wait to receive these numbers, we currently have budgeted a 10% increase from this current year. Something to keep in mind is that the premiums now are paid at 10% below the actual premium billed in 2020. This is made possible by the use of rate stabilization dollars in the years since. So while the township will pay more in 2025, the premium will still be below the actual premium billed. The budget includes a 5% increase to our annual operating contribution to our volunteer fire department. This number is $193,930. There's also a capital contribution in the amount of $172,000. This number does not include the cost of workers' compensation coverage that is provided by the township, as is required by state law, nor does this number include the Act 205 pass-through aid to the Department's Relief Association, which was received last month and is budgeted at approximately $106,000. In addition to providing financial support to our volunteer fire department, the township is working to support those employees who serve as volunteer firefighters during the workday. For many years, the township has permitted its employees to respond to fire and other emergency calls during the workday, and the township provides a monthly stipend for these employees. There are currently 7 employees who participate in this program, and the proposed 2025 budget includes the continuation to the monthly stipend with no increase. Lastly, the general fund will transfer dollars to the capital fund at the end of next year. This revenue will provide for needed capital projects. The transfer amount will continue to change and be refined in the coming weeks as we adjust the budget to reflect incoming receipts and expenditure estimates. But currently, at this time, the transfer is projected to be around $707,000. For the capital fund, at the top of the list of capital projects is the annual road program. The township will continue to provide an augmented resurfacing program, which will help to keep our roads in good condition. The capital fund will provide $721,000 to the road program, which, when coupled from dollars from our liquid fuels fund, will provide $1.1 million in the road program for 2025. In addition, the capital fund also funds a bridge repair on Green Hill Road and the construction of a band shell for the residents. Some capital improvements included in the budget for parks and trails include repairing the Sunnybrook Pavilion roof, several upgrades to Heiser Field, the paving of Zacharias Trail, and repairing fences at Heebner and Sunnybrook Park. Lastly, the capital fund will provide for the replacement of public works vehicles and equipment that have reached the end of their useful life, including the replacement of a pickup truck, a dump truck, and a mower. The capital budget also includes the purchase of a portable fuel cell, which provides a reliable, eco-friendly power source for our remote projects. Additionally budgeted is a mobile aerial lift designed for versatility and ease of use, allowing public works to access hard-to-reach areas safely and efficiently. This new equipment not only streamlines our workflow, but also ensures that we can tackle projects with greater precision and effectiveness. For the sewer fund, as to sewer rates, the budget presently includes a 1% increase to residential rates in 2025, which translate to an approximate $50 per month increase for each home on the township system. A 1% increase to commercial sewer rates is also proposed. The sewer fund currently provides $90,000 for capital improvements throughout the coming year. Just like our roadway network, the sanitary sewer system requires regular upkeep to maximize the useful life of its many components. Things like blowers, pumps, and meters will need to be replaced in order to keep the pump stations running efficiently. For the liquid fuels fund, the estimated 2025 allocation was received earlier this month. It was a total of $355,778.42. This is approximately 0.5% less than received this year. For many municipalities, the annual liquid fuels allocation is the annual road maintenance budget. Worcester does not assume that the liquid fuels allocation is adequate to meet our real road maintenance needs. As previously mentioned, we budget additional dollars in both the general fund and capital fund to meet this obligation. We will therefore offset any decrease in liquid fuels funding with additional dollars through the capital fund. As for next steps, the township will continue to monitor our receipts and expenditures and make adjustments to the budget where warranted. We'll include new numbers when they're received. The budget will be presented once again at the November 20th business meeting, at which the board will consider approval to advertise the proposed budget for the required public inspection period. The board will then consider the 2025 budget for adoption at its meeting in December.
Thank you, Nicole. So A couple of things I want to touch on relative to that. First, Dan, I know we had talked last month about staffing, and it sounds like we've gone with 2 administrative folks and sort of that generalist, specialist, if you will, role. You maybe want to take a minute or two. I know you're still getting up to speed on some things, but maybe you could just offer a little insight to what the thinking is there.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear. So we do have a current position budgeted as of, I think over the last 3 years from what I saw, that was just never hired. So really, we would be looking, we do have a part-time position, and that would be converted to a full-time position. So as far as actual additional money in the budget, it's really only a half an FTE difference from previous budgets. So 2 sounds like a lot, but it's really half of 1 as it stands because of the previous budgeting and the current part-time employee being essentially eliminated and replaced with a full-time position. I hope that clears it up a little.
It does. I mean, the dollars are, as you say, closer to static than to full. But also one of the other areas we're trying to sort of address is items like our audit that talk about being able to do separation of duties and different elements. When you have a smaller staff, we talked about how the difficulty sometimes is to be able to sort of satisfy that requirement. So being able to sort of get bulking up the staff to some degree to allow for that cross-training and allowing for those things to happen certainly sounds like an important thing we want to make sure we're doing.
And that's absolutely correct. And I just want to, there's, I guess, a difference between adequate as in basic survival and adequate in getting the things done that we want to address going forward in the future to make sure this township is properly situated, let's say, for anything that may be down the pike. So I think it's important to make sure that we're in a place, ahead of anything that may come, just to make sure that we are able to accomplish the tasks that we're required to do.
Understood. For folks that were not here last month, the process of budgeting is a multi-step process. It's a living document internally within our administrative staff. We had a presentation last month, which is sort of the first pass at it, a presentation tonight. In November, there'll be another presentation, at which point in November, the board will make a decision to then advertise the budget for adoption in December. So it's a 4-month process in terms of just administratively, but it's continuing to sort of work and evolve through the fall in terms of that. Either board members, I know we had a first pass last month. We also had some information that we had reviewed prior to that. Does anybody have any thoughts, comments, questions, items they want to bring up at this point?
No, Mr. Chairman, I think Dan's only been here a month, getting a lot of things under, I guess, control of changes that he sees needs to be done. And I think the direction of Public Works, once again, buying some of this equipment, that we can do some of this stuff in-house with our workers is important, that we can go out and rather than relying on outside contractors. I know we talked about hiring some additional people down there to help with the workload, but I certainly think that the more we can do in-house, less we're dependent on the outside contractors. I think to serve the people in the town should be much better off with services. And I think it's important. Definitely, we have a lot of tree problems in our park, around our parks, and I think this machine can certainly help our public works people to do the work. So I think we're making some steps in the right direction.
I generally don't recommend administrative employees. I don't add employees unless I'm essentially their production justifies it. So meaning we'll get more production than we're spending on it. So I believe it's a cost savings more than anything else.
Yeah, especially in the park. You often hear from people saying there's a lot of dead branches there, and as our residents walk around the park, I think it's much easier for do it in-house rather than an outside contractor coming in. We go out and, put the machine up, cut the branches down to make it safe for our residents to use our park and our trail system. So I think it's a good idea.
Steve, I think last month you mentioned, and I'll reiterate it because I think it was a good point. The whole staffing element is always sort of a tricky one. We've had management that felt we were way overstaffed, management that thought we needed to add 30 people and sort of everything in between. And part of that is sort of a sort of marrying of concepts to make sure that we're both meeting the needs of the residents, but also sort of making sure we're satisfying all our fiduciary responsibilities as well and compliance requirements, which I think, again, I think we've done a good job with that, but we're always trying to fine tune that if we can. So folks, we're not voting on anything budget related tonight, but we sort of aligned this to be in front of public comment. So if folks wanted to make generalized comments about the budget or wanted to offer any input, they'd have an opportunity to do that. Nicole, I think we're good from that standpoint. I think the board has everything we need at this juncture. I have one more informational item that I want to share, and then we'll open it up for public comment, and folks can obviously comment on anything, but certainly you can also comment on the budget. So the additional informational item that I wanted to sort of address is the school district. And I don't know if anybody had the opportunity to, you mentioned it last month, Steve, but since we're talking about budgeting and spending and some different things, I don't know if folks are aware, but the school district, the school board is going to be voting at the end of this month on what would be a fairly significant change to our district and the potential of possibly building a new high school. You had mentioned last month, Steve, we're not paying for that. Like the township is not, but the school district, it's a fairly important. I want to mention it for a couple of reasons. One is because it's a vote at the end of this month. I had the opportunity to see the video. I didn't see the presentation, the most recent meeting live, but there weren't a ton of people there. So I think sometimes there's just as a matter of awareness, letting people know it's a process, but ultimately they're voting on spending $3.2 million at the end of the month, which would sort of be architectural expenditures to then build out the sketch plans and things of that nature. We've all fielded calls and questions about what we have already done to approve this, and the answer is nothing. And if you went to the meeting or listened to the meeting, they sort of articulated that. They haven't even begun a process to come. We had one informational meeting with the school district, but our board, our planning commission, our zoning board, if that becomes necessary, none of those pieces, they've done none of the steps of land development yet, but it's sort of, they start their process of spending money to work towards building sketch plans and things of that nature, and then would come before our board. And it's a lengthy process, but it's a big amount of money that they're potentially considering, spending. We want to be very clear that this board has not approved or green lighted or done anything. And they sort of say that in the meeting, but again, sometimes people think that it's already happened and it hasn't. So there's an opportunity to certainly let the school district know how you feel about it, the school board, prior to the vote, which I think is the 29th. It's later this month. I don't remember the exact date, but I think it's the 29th. And then there'll be, additional steps thereafter. But, Steve had mentioned last month, we're not, those dollars don't come out of our budget. We're talking about the budget and sort of having, we pride ourselves on trying to be fiscally as responsible as we can be. A new school is potentially a $200 million investment for the district, and we all sort of bear that as residents, but this particular board has not approved or done. Just informationally, I had an opportunity to sit through it. It's a couple-hour meeting. It's a little bit like watching paint dry, but it is important sort of to see what's going on and getting the feedback in terms of that. It just didn't have a huge audience that participated, so I wanted to take a minute to mention it. I know, Steve, you had mentioned last month about it, and I wanted to make sure we're sort of, sometimes people don't, they sort of conflate those two pieces. So informationally, I just wanted to share that. If anybody else wants to make a quick comment on that, and then I'll open it up for public comment.
Rick, two things. I think the people out there that have to understand that we, the Board of Supervisors, only have so much control over issues. First, I'll address the apartments across the street on the corner. That wasn't our idea. Federal government, state government, county government is shoving things down the throats of Worcester. We don't really have a say in it. They came in and said, you're deficient in apartments. We did our study through the county. We didn't determine this site. Some sites were given to us, the best possible sites by the professional people saying, hey, here are the sites they thought it would be less impactful on the township as a whole. So that's really the first thing, that things are no longer the way they used to be in Worcester, a nice, quiet little community where we could sit there and do certain things and we weren't challenged. We're now being challenged by either developers or outside sources to change certain things. The school district is another item. We can only do so much with that. I'm hearing from people regarding traffic problems, anticipated traffic problems around the school. We're well aware of that. We can work with the school district, try to change things. I don't have a say in if they're going to vote on it, how they're going to vote on the new building, what it looks like. That's part of the school board. That's where those folks are elected. But once again, the township can hold people accountable for their building projects within a certain scope of the law. We can be challenged on those things, so we sit here trying to guide the ship through the canal, and then sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes a lot of questions are raised about why we do things or how we do things, but it really comes down to the legal system that we work with. And we could say hold things up, stop things, but it can be challenged now legally. So it's a process we're all working through, and it's decisions that are going to happen regarding our taxpayers in the next couple of years that could have a tax impact on all the residents. So.
Fair enough. Do you have any thoughts there, Lou? I know you've certainly followed the school pretty closely on a lot of these items.
I'm just going to bounce off of what Steve just said about the curative amendment and the apartment project, the Facebook, public media, all that neat stuff. They kind of slammed the supervisors for that. I just want it on the record, and I do want it on the record, that I did not vote for that apartment complex. And I believe land planning, 2 members of land planning did come forward and state that they were not informed at that meeting prior to that vote. So the information that they provided to this board in a public meeting stated that that manager at that time did not sufficiently supply any information, and then again stated some fact that, you know, that the planning did approve it, which, and, you know, I guess there's a little controversial on that one. So that one I think's, you know, this is not going away, and apparently there's a lot of hype on this one. So I understand that we have to do certain things, but that one I don't believe was handled correctly by any means.
Okay.
And again, Steve made a comment to me that was the zoning done properly. I don't know that. I mean, I don't believe it was, but I think that's going to be investigated eventually. So that's enough.
Okay. Okay, so moving forward, next item on our agenda is public comment. As I said, you can comment not just on the budget, but since we had that presentation tonight, certainly you can. But does anybody have any public comment for the board this evening? Bill?
The green light is on. Bill McGreen, Stump Hole Road. I wanted to follow up a conversation that we started last month about parks usage, following up Steve's question that led to staff doing an analysis of park usage in the township. At the end of that conversation, it was pointed out that the analysis was in the June package, and it was like the answers were in there. And so I thought, well, I've been wrong before, so I went looking in the June package. There's something in there. I don't believe the answers are in there, and I don't believe Steve's questions were answered in there. And so I wanted to review that, but I don't think it's fair to ask you to follow along something that I'm reading without giving you work product from the township about this. So I will share that now. So Steve basically asked, who's using what fields when and how much. And so staff made up this, call it report, call it product, and I just wanted to quick review it. In the first paragraph, it gives a little background. In the matrix, it gives you the number of fields. Between the paragraph and the matrix, it doesn't tell you where fields are. It tells you there are 13 rentable fields, 9 at Heebner, 3 at Sunnybrook, 1 at Mount Kirk. Then you get a count of how many fields there are and what they are. But nowhere does it tell you in this where those fields are. So if you know the website, the township website, you can go find a map of Heebner Park and you can start counting. Okay, because I'm not aware of a map of Sunnybrook or Mount Kirk showing the athletic fields on the website. So you get to that. You can get to that point, kind of back into it a little bit. But that's important because Sunnybrook and Mount Kirk are on the borders of the township, whereas Heebner's in the center of the township. So in the second paragraph, it's noted that of the 8 organizations in the lower matrix, 6 are youth sports organizations who rented facilities. Okay, that's interesting. That will be important a little bit later. Further down, this is what got me. Further down, there's a statement. While the township typically accommodates daily field rentals, this year it is nearly impossible due to the limited field space available. So I went, wonder what that really means. So there is a lower matrix with, it's easy to do, 13 fields, 7 days a week, 91 rentable days. We're renting it 83 days a week. That's 92% usage. That's pretty heavy usage. So, okay, so now we go over to the matrix, and I'm looking at the matrix, and I don't recognize any of those organizations locally. So if you go to the back of the final page, you'll find that list of what fields are where that matches up with the Heebner map, but it also tells you what fields are at Sunnybrook and what are at Mount Kirk. If you go to the front of that page, it's the township's page 1 of the 4-page contract to rent fields. Now, basically, the requirements are you need to be able to provide a certificate of insurance. They do put it out in a certain methodology. The methodology is one group gets first, and that group is Group 1 renters include township-based organizations that primarily serve township residents only and that are renting facilities for events that are primarily for township residents only. Okay, you would think that's the way you would do it. Second group, Group 2. Group 2 renters include organizations not included in Group 1 that primarily serve youth ages 17 and under. Well, that references back to this work product where 6 of the 8 organizations are youth. So that de facto means they are not township-based organizations. They're from outside the township by their own criteria. And then there's the third group, which Group 3 renters include any organization, not a Group 2 or Group 3 organization. No, that's a typo. It is a contract. Maybe somebody should have picked this up a few years ago, that's a nonsense sentence. But I assume that means Group 3 is everybody else in the world who's not Group 1 or Group 2. Doesn't say that. It says gobbledygook. So we go over and take a look at the list. You got 8 groups using the field 83 times. So we don't know if Merck's using it 75 times and everybody else once, or if Whitpain Recreation Association is using it 75 times or everybody else once. We don't know Whitpain Recreation what fields they're using. So what it seems to me is there's only one possible group out of this that could be Worcester-based, which I don't know if that's true or not. I'm assuming none of these are. And so without knowing Steve's question, the answer to Steve's question is who's using what, when, and how much, you don't really know how do we prepare for that? Is Worcester short fields or is Collegeville short fields? Is Methacton short fields? Is Merck short fields? Is Whitpain Township short fields? And Worcester gets the overflow of everybody because we've got more fields than we need. That's not the premise that was presented to the Planning Commission last year by one of these groups. They said just the opposite. So I think this needs to be followed up because referencing the budget, you're talking about replacing the roof at Whitpain, at Sunnybrook Park. Okay, you can replace the roof. If Sunnybrook Park is fully rented by Whitpain Recreation Association year-round and not used by any organization from Worcester, shouldn't Whitpain contribute to replacing that roof? It's a reasonable question. The answer of the usage isn't here, but it could be inferred. And so I would just like to ask, not, trying not to be sarcastic here because I felt like there was a little sent my way last meeting. This isn't great work product. It doesn't answer Steve's questions. And I would like to have Steve's questions answered so that we can have an honest conversation and so that each year that information can be provided to the Planning Commission so that they can actually know when somebody comes in and they're bluffing them, I got 650 kids in my program from Methacton, that they don't have, 649 from
Right.
Lower Providence and one from Worcester. And so as they're looking at open space and usages, these are legitimate questions that aren't being answered when they're correctly asked. That was 6 months ago that Steve asked the question. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate the comments as always. Bob?
Bob Bm, Worcester. So I really wanted to just focus on the budget at this time, but Steve raised an issue specifically regarding CityView and somehow suggesting that the township's hands were tied on all of that, and that there were edicts from whether county, state, or federal entities that were forcing the township's hands. I would love to know what all of those were, and I will file a right to know. I don't expect to get an answer. I was told at the time, as I am a member of the Planning Commission, and voted against that curative amendment, specifically because every question I raised, the response from the township manager at that time was, that's a matter of litigation. I can't answer it. I'm not aware of any specific litigation that happened. Again, maybe all of that took place, but I would love to know all of the answers behind that and what that was. So I'll file my right to know, but I kind of already anticipate what the answer will be on that. Specifically regarding the budget and the budget presentation, I have asked for transparency. So just from a presentation standpoint, are we going to get our audiovisual equipment addressed so that we can perhaps follow along? And or can you present us with the information that is being presented so that we can try to follow that? So there is a 4-page document, presumably related to the budget, because it specifically has a column that says 2025 budget. Of all of the information that Nicole just presented, I could only follow one number as being on that document. I can't follow anything that she's presenting. It's not on the website. It's not in this package. I'm just listening to what she says. And so the only information that had any correlation with any of this information was specifically the liquid fuels fund number. That shows up under the state fund page under a line item called licenses. I don't think that the liquid fuels funds are licenses because it certainly hasn't been presented that way in anything. So along the point that Bill's been making, I get that this is a working document, but it's inaccurate. And everything else that she presented, I could not follow. And so next month, you're going to make another presentation. And if it's anywhere close to what happened today with any of the information, we have no way of knowing this. And then 3 days before you go to vote on it, we'll actually see all of that information, perhaps, with the budget presentation. I get that it's a working document. Why can't you give that information to us? Whatever she said, whatever she presented, why can't we look at that so that we can raise comments or concerns regarding that?
Okay. I hear you. I don't know why the information's not out on the website. We talked about that last month. The issue got raised last month. I think we discussed putting it out there. I don't have an answer for why it isn't if it isn't. We'll look to get it all out there so that it's available. We'll certainly look to make sure that we have adequate information in November in the packets, so that you can follow along with that. I don't know why it's not there, Bob. I don't have an answer. We'll find out. We'll do our best to get it both to the website and into the packets so that you have the information that you're requesting.
I'll wait till there's other appropriate issues, but the gist of my comments each time will be, there's no accountability here. And you're just listening, saying, I'm not sure, I don't know why, I'll look into it. But it's how are we supposed to follow what you're doing? We can't. And that's unfair to us.
Bob, I appreciate the comments as always. Does anybody else wish to make public comment to the board this evening? Christine?
Christine Steer, Baton Road. Sorry, I just want to write this in. The reason for my comment tonight is I just wanted to make you all aware of some information that I got over the weekend about something happening here in the township. So I think you all know that we're in the middle of a very contentious political election. We're voting on November 5th, and people are working, to promote their candidates, and some of that includes yard signs. And information came to me that people are dumping a certain political sign in Worcester, like a very large dumping site. And we were able to confirm that it existed, and I can supply photos and things to you if you'd like. But I think it's really important for two reasons to bring this forward. Is number one, the kind of work that I do, as you know, I'm an attorney, and I work with the Constitution every day, and I think that we all have a First Amendment right and a right of association to express our political beliefs as we see fit. And I'm not making any accusations here. I'm not here on behalf of the Worcester Democrats. I'm here as a resident, as a person who has a First Amendment right to put a sign in my yard promoting whatever candidate, just as you folks have the same right. But these signs are being taken in the middle of the night. I delivered signs to folks in this township with the political support that they want to give and they want to put out there. And I got calls the next day that those signs were taken. And again, there is a large, or there was, because we cleaned it up. Because that's the second part of that is not only is, theft and vandalism happening in this township, people are dumping trash, or what people would perceive as trash in our beloved green spaces. We all live here in Worcester because we love our green spaces. And there was this very large, you didn't see it, so it's hard for me to express hundreds of signs, hundreds of signs. And it's been going on obviously for weeks. It wasn't something that was just dumped one time. And through our investigation and just, collecting the signs, some of the signs came as far away as Haverford Township. So today I drove down to Haverford Township and gave them their signs back because, those were their signs. So I don't know who's doing it. I don't really care who's doing it, but I just wanted you to be aware that there is a problem with sign. I would hope that we would all agree that theft and vandalism is something that shouldn't be happening in our township, and certainly pollution and littering in our township shouldn't be happening either. But I wanted you to know also that we made sure that the site was cleaned. There are no signs there as of 2 days ago. But I just wanted you to be aware of that activity going on.
So did you share where that was with our town, with the staff?
I can.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we'd like to know where it is,
of
for
course.
sure. We want to make sure we're monitoring it. And I'd say a couple of things. I mean, one is I've run in elections. I've
So do I.
participated in, as you have.
Yes.
And we both have had signs stolen
Yes.
in our, I won't say meaningless, they're meaningful, but in our lower level. And certainly, this is escalated in ways that I think we would all agree is not ideal.
I agree.
And certainly not representative of the community as a whole. It is tricky as a First Amendment issue, and there was actually a state Supreme Court case earlier this year that sort of said this is protected speech. It's because we run into issues regarding temporary signs, generally speaking, but certainly political signs are one that are very tricky, and we try to say that every resident has a right on their individual property to put signs, and it used to be 30 days before the election, and then it became whatever is considered reasonable, and then we can agree or disagree on what reasonable is, depending on who our candidate is or what the message is. Some of that has made it harder and harder. We certainly don't ever want our spaces to turn into dumping grounds for any of it. It's actually, it's against the law to take a sign off somebody's property. It's a hard one to enforce,
You
but
and
it
I
is,
both know that
it's a
nothing's-
truism.
Nothing's getting done with that. But
Either way, we don't want it, to your point, we certainly do not want to have them in any dumped area if staff knows we can make sure we're monitoring better for the next few weeks so it doesn't happen again or show up
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah, and so I just wanted to make you aware, and I certainly will, I can call the township tomorrow. I'm happy to supply all the information that I have. But I just wanted you to be aware that this was going on. And again, I'm not making any accusations. It doesn't really matter. I just want you to know that, not only is there, theft and vandalism happening within the township, but also, the environmental impact as well.
I think it's unfortunate. I do
It is.
appreciate you sharing that with the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any public comment for the board tonight? Seeing none, we'll move forward. First up, we have our official action items, starting with our consent agenda. As I ask each month, first and foremost, does anybody wish to make any changes to the consent agenda this evening?
Nope.
Okay, and I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of the September 18 work session minutes, September 18 business meeting minutes, the treasurer's report, and other monthly reports of September of 24, and the bill payment of September 24, as long as the chairman, you have signed every check and that you feel that everything is appropriate and you feel that everything was consistent, yes, I'll approve the bills of the payment of the township.
In the amount of?
All right, so let's do this number here. So the number that we're paying out is $1,698,424.09, which of $1,143,581.86 is for Allen A. Myers road paving programs, which again breaks it down to the township. Part of that in our bills would be $554,842.23.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Bob?
Bob Andor, Worcester. From an accountability standpoint, last month, I specifically asked if there was a mechanism there whereby we, the residents who are paying those bills, could see what those bills are. We don't have them. So I will continue every month to come up here and tell you not to pay the bills until you can be accountable and tell us what those bills are. And if you tell me that I need to file right to know, every time I request the information that you're presenting, it's in your package. You're providing that information and you're authorizing the payment. I find that unacceptable that we cannot see who you're authorizing these payments to. So from that perspective, I don't think you should pay the bills because I've asked for a copy of those to be presented to us. I don't need to see the bill, I just need to see a summary. Who are you paying? Paying $500,000 to people, presumably doing your job. But we don't see that. We can't check that. I guess we can check it after the fact. And that's going to be a recurring component here that we're not being proactive, we're being reactive for everything. So I've asked for it, and clearly you've made the decision that we're not entitled to see that information, and you won't continue to do that. If you have a different opinion, then I would love for you to make some kind of working process so that that information could be presented to us on a monthly basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Mr. Chairman, just if I may, we are reviewing that process internally to try to make it so the bills lists are available for obviously your review before they are now. The problem right now is the timing of it. So we are addressing that internally. I would just ask for the public's patience while we figure out the best way to do that. We don't want to rush it and cause ourselves some problems that we didn't expect from a logistical standpoint, but we are addressing that in-house, and we will work to make that information more publicly available ahead of time.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Does anybody else? So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any additional public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Moving on to motions. Next up, we start with our motion to approve Church Road no parking ordinance. Dan or John, do you want to give us a little bit of backdrop here? I don't know who's got all the information. As folks might remember, last month we agreed to advertise for the ordinance change. It's come up in a couple of meetings, but for folks who have not been participating in those previous meetings, let's get a quick overview of what's going on.
Yeah, in response to some residents' complaints about parking along Church Road at Wheat Chief, the township responded by executing a traffic study, a basic traffic study for sight triangles, et cetera, to make sure everything was safe there. They did generate a report, which is in your packet and was in your packet last month. John, if you want to get in, I guess, some more of the technical details that I'm not qualified to talk on.
Sure. So the township's traffic engineer, Bowman, prepared the report in August. They made some recommendations for the parking along Church Road. Those recommendation was to restrict parking on the western side of Church Road and to install no parking signs and tow-away zone signs along the whole frontage. In addition, they also recommended to have the township remove some vegetation. The township advertised this ordinance last month, and it's in front of you to be voted on.
Does any board member have any comments or questions regarding this particular item?
Is there a copy of the ordinance in this packet somewhere? Do you know of?
Yeah.
Is there a map showing that the drawings and the,
So the Bowman.
I was kind of hoping there was going to be one up high, but.
We could put it up if we needed to. We do have it internally.
You have.
I'm not picking on you. I'm not picking on you.
So you have it.
I do. I just give me the page so I can.
I'll
I'll look at yours real quick. Just give me a letter.
I got to find the letter at the front. 1 second, Lou.
And does the public have a copy of, obviously it was advertised, they could read that. But
Oh,
as far as a map, like to show the public, there you go. And that's,
in our packet, it's O. Do they have a copy of the Bowman document in the, it is,
They do. There's a sightline analysis
Yep.
in there with exhibits marked out on the sightline issues there and where those no parking signs would be posted along that.
there you go.
I got it here. So, John, just give me a brief overview since I'm looking at pictures for the first time here. Are we eliminating all parking on that that side of the road?
Correct.
So there will be no parking, it'll be striped with no parking signs?
There's no, there is no striping. It's only
No striping, just signs?
just signage.
Okay. You want to make a motion, or you want to take public comment ahead of time?
You, motion second, public comment. I'm asking if you have questions or comments now, by all means, before we do the motion.
In 5 minutes, I'm like reading through this, and I'm like, we're eliminating a lot of parking.
We had a copy of this 2 months ago, Lou.
I understand, I'm just getting these pictures, this is the final report.
No, the Bowman memo we had 2 months ago that has all that.
I did, and I agree, I thought there was striping involved, okay, I had different
It's fine.
questions back in the day, and now I'm just seeing these pictures again.
Sure.
And we hired Bowman to do the report. And again, I've always challenged a number of people on a number of things because they don't live here. They don't understand the public and the people. So to tell the people that live in that neighborhood they can't park on that side of the road. Again, the only challenging question was the box truck and the the site so people could turn left or right, and it was being blocked. So I don't know right now. I'm gonna ask for more opinions. If I live in this area, so I understand what's going on. To eliminate all, I thought it was going to be a partial. I didn't realize it was going to be the entire area. There would be no parking on that. So I'm not. Again, Bowman can do whatever they want. They're an engineer. It doesn't make them right or wrong. It makes their opinion. I guess they do that for a profession. Again, they don't live there, so I would challenge every engineer, every lawyer, and everything if they don't live there or understand the whole problem. They just do what they do professionally. I don't agree with it as presented, so that's my opinion on that.
Lou, so you get no truck parking?
Again, Steve, there's a picture here with a box truck. Okay. But what we're doing today, not that we're going to enforce it or can, because we don't, but same with the school and their parking issue, and that was a year-long adventure, but you're eliminating the parking of everybody on that side of the road. Now, if there was a party, and this is a tight neighborhood, and say there was 20 people that were going to park there for a graduation party, they could not park on that side of the road. Now, it could be 20 cars, and it'd be a temporary thing. And the only concern about the parking was the box truck, which is a large object, obstructing the view for people making left and right. To eliminate all the parking, I thought it was just going to be a partial from the corner and so many feet up. I was misunderstood. So I don't know if I agree with Bowman's outcome.
So let me back up the clock a little bit here, if I can. So there were complaints.
Yes,
You asked us,
I did.
and we had a discussion about it here, and we agreed collectively as a board to have Bowman look at it.
We did.
They did. They assessed sight lines from both sides. They did an analysis, just like we asked them to. They produced a document that outlined why they thought there were issues on the sight lines in both directions, and they made recommendations to us in the memo as to how they thought that could be addressed. That's what we have before us. That's what you asked to do. That's what we have before us.
I'm agreeing with everything you said
Okay.
except for one small thing. I don't agree with Bowman.
Okay. They are the professional traffic
They
engineer.
should be off. Everybody makes mistakes. President's on them. Everybody makes mistakes. And if you don't live there and you don't understand it, again, they have their own formulas.
What,
I don't agree with their presentation. I don't agree with it. I mean,
what do you disagree with? Okay, let's go back up. I thought, Mr. Betts, you brought up about the fire people having a problem with the fire trucks on a narrow road. You're friends with the fire people in the firehouse, and I thought you mentioned in the meeting somewhere along the line that the trucks can hardly get around that corner with the cars there. Am I mistaken on that?
Sir, when it's public comment, you can share that completely.
So I guess my question is, we had the discussion. What's your problem with the engineering study? I guess that's my question now that as we're ready to move ahead.
I did a thing where I was assuming, and I didn't read the report, so it's my mistake, but with what Bowman did, and they're just doing a blanket, all right, nobody parks anywhere, and we're done. That's my study. And again, I thought it was more of the obstruction of the box truck and where it was parked so people could turn left and right. They're just doing a blanket, nobody parks anywhere, and we're good. I mean, I don't agree with it because again, going into that neighborhood several times, I have customer base out of that. I think it's going to cause a bigger problem. People are going to park there anyway. And is it going to cause a problem? I believe it is. So I thought it was going to be a partial. And again, these pictures don't show a lot other than, I was looking more for a map, and I thought they were going to stripe the road also. So I'm just not agreeing with Bowman's outcome, and I'm allowed. I mean, that's my opinion.
You are. What we would ask,
We can table it until I have a further evaluation, but
well, you have to review it. You have to review it. We had it a month ago before us. That's why we voted to put it in there.
I agree.
So
You don't really need my vote. You guys can vote, and I can vote no, and it doesn't matter because it'll still pass that way. But I'm looking at this picture, and I'm like, that whole, again, me and engineers always go round and round on certain things. Like, if you need a 12-inch I-beam, and they put a 30-inch I-beam because when they cover their butt. But I get it. In this case, they just say, oh, well, nobody can see, so nobody parks, so that's the end of that. And again, you guys can pass it. I'm not disagreeing with whatever. I just don't like the way a blanket, nobody parks anywhere, and we're covered, and that's their solution. So,
but how do you feel they should have addressed it differently?
well, if I could talk to Bowman, maybe I could express my opinion, and they're not here to represent that. We just have their pictures. But for the first, I don't know, with the length of the parking, if it's 500 feet, maybe the first 200 feet could be allowed parking, and the other 300 feet where it wouldn't, you could see past the truck to make your left or right. So I'm just exercising my view that
So, Mr. Bett, you're changing your view from the beginning because you originally brought this up. I thought we had the discussion. We contacted the state police, and the state police said they couldn't do anything unless the township did some kind of ordinance to post the signs to say no parking. So we went ahead. We said, well, we don't want to do that until we do a traffic study, and brought the engineering to do the study for the area. And therefore, we get the study back, and they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And that's where the problem is now, correct? You now want to change your mind about posting it.
I'm not changing my mind about the no parking. I'm just not agreeing with the report on how they did it. And again, you guys can pass it, and I'm just going to say no, but that's okay. It'll still pass.
Can I add something additionally here?
Sure.
So the report reads that their minimum recommendations 235 and up to 460. So it's that first sentence in the second page. So it'd be 235 south of Wheat Shift Lane towards Lower Providence. That'd be the minimum amount that they would recommend, and then up to Lower Providence Township line.
Right, but the ordinance doesn't say that. Correct?
The ordinance doesn't say that because last month, a draft of the ordinance was before the board.
Correct.
And the board reviewed it and authorized the advertisement of the ordinance. So the ordinance before you this evening, if you decided that you wish to make a revision to it, it would be necessary for us to amend the ordinance and re-advertise. And that's obviously the board's prerogative, but we can't just do it on the fly here tonight.
Yep.
I don't have a problem redoing it, but once again, Mr. Best wants to talk to the engineering company. What would you like to tell the engineering company so that that would change the ordinance that before us? You said you didn't like the report, or you had questions regarding the report. What would you like to change in there?
Well, I'd have a discussion with a member of Bowman, and I'm gonna say, let's get in a car and let's go for a ride. And then let's go in and out of the neighborhood several times. Let's come down Church Road. Let's go back up. Let's do a visual. And you gotta sell me on the idea that if we have no parking, I'm looking out for the residents. So what I'm looking for is if we do this, I think we're impacting the residents. And again, this has been there for 30 years, this subdivision or townhouse. And we're disrupting people's life by doing this. So if they were to have a party and you're gonna do is enact a whole bunch of parking involved in that residence, inside that little complex, which is tight to begin with. It's groups of 3 houses. So let's say we do that. Say we enact this. I'm just doing a what if. This is a hypothetical. Say we do this and you no parking and people actually obey the law, which, right, good luck with that. But anyway, so they stack all these cars in that neighborhood and there's a fire. And you're not gonna move 40, 50 cars at one time. You're just not gonna happen. And then the fire truck can't get in there. Why? Well, because all the cars are parked there and stacking in the way. So now, again, I think this could be altered where you're allowed some parking. Because I don't think they're thinking everything through. And I'm looking at what if. And there's a whole lot of, you're impacting people's lives. So just making a martial law and say, all right, well, they said Bowman's the greatest, so they know what they're doing, and let's just do it. I have a little more gut feeling with the residents and the people of like.
Okay, so I hear you. So
That's my opinion. I mean, I'm
well, but opinion aside,
yes.
so part of what we have is process, okay? And part of our process is sometimes things take several months before they even get to us. There are steps that happen along the way. We had the steps. What you don't understand is there's a time to raise those issues
They're right.
for sure. And this isn't it, but I don't think Steve and I, either one of us, are trying to just jam it through either.
Right.
So, I don't have a problem with refining it if refining it makes more sense, but I have an issue with us taking something 97% down the road and then saying, oh, by the way, I didn't mention this 3 months ago when maybe we should have in terms of that. If there are concerns along the way, that's when we have an opportunity to address them. Because there was and there is a concern with the parking in that area. You brought it before us. We took it, we had a meeting, we had conversations, we tried to get both sides together to understand as best we could what's happening here. We then gave it, we give it to the professionals. They provide us back a memo, which they provided to us, that had all the details that we requested. We built an ordinance, we built that off of the information that was provided. If we want to edit that, then last month we don't approve to advertise it. That's the mechanics of how that works. That's when we make the change, so that, or even before that, ultimately. So, I don't think we're.
I agree with you.
Go ahead.
It's one of these things where I don't really have a dog in this fight. Mr. Betts brought it to our attention. We moved on it, and okay, it's a serious concern. Let's work on it. Between the things I mentioned, between the fire trucks and the safety issues, okay, it's an issue. You live in that area, you know the situation. I know the road. I've driven the road. I'm not that familiar with the road. I don't know what residents park on it and what the inconvenience will cause to the residents, and I have no problem going back with it. But as Rick said, we're 85%, 90% down the road with the ordinance doing all this stuff, and nothing's ever cast in stone until it's voted on. So Mr. Betts wants to relook at it because I don't want this to come back and say you know, it's a problem because you two voted against me on this situation. Once again, I rely on the professional people. I'm not a traffic expert. I know he doesn't live in the area. So if you want to take a drive with the guy and try to come up with something to bring back to the board, I don't have a problem
fine.
with that.
All right.
No.
So folks, the end outcome is we're going to table the item tonight. We're not going to vote on it tonight. We'll give it the opportunity to see if there's a refinement there. We understand it's not addressed. We're not saying no to it. We're taking an additional step to make sure that the finished product all three of us are happy with. We do recognize it's an issue. We're also trying not, again, we're not trying to just be heavy-handed to overvote somebody just because we have an extra vote in terms of that. So if you want to share public comment, you can't. We're not voting, so you don't share it now. You're certainly welcome to share your thoughts. We have a public comment section at the end of the meeting where you certainly can share your individual comments that you have on it. Bob, it doesn't take comment now, unfortunately. No. What I said was we have a public comment at the end of the meeting, and you can share them, but we're not taking a vote on the item now, so there's no public comment right now. That's all. Okay, so moving forward, next up, it's going to be a motion to approve Resolution 24-08 to apply for an LSA grant for the Valley Forge Corridor Improvement Program. A little information, please.
Just so the LSA grant program is it's a state-funded program. It's a no-match grant program. It's funded totally by the gambling revenue through the state. The request is to allow us to apply for a local share act grant in the amount of $1 million. And this will supplement the larger grant application previously submitted to fund the construction of roadway improvements at Valley Forge Road and Woodland Ave. We were instructed by the board to work on finding additional funding sources, and staff and our professionals agree that this is a good spot to look. So it's just a permission to submit the application for the township. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dan. Does anybody have any questions regarding this particular grant application?
No, sir.
Nope. I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 24-08, apply for the LSA grant for the Valley Forge Corridor Improvement Project.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion that's on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have deja vu. It's going to be another, it's going to be Resolution 24-09. And this is going to be to apply for an LSA grant for the firehouse upgrades. Dan, we'll ask you to
Yes. So
roll back the clock and share some more.
the grant program is exactly the same. What this will do is nonprofits and organizations such as a fire company are eligible for this funding. However, they need a municipal sponsor. In that case, it would obviously be us because they're right in the center of the township, and we use them primarily for our fire coverage. It would not be an expense to the township. We would just be doing some basic administration and assisting through the application and being that municipal sponsor. They were put onto this by some of their elected officials at the state level. So, to me, this is a win-win as far as getting some additional funding for equipment and building upgrades.
Thank you, Dan. Does anybody have any questions on this particular application?
Dan, this amount of money, does it have the amount that we're trying to get?
Yeah, that's the maximum that you're eligible for under the LSA grant program is $1 million. So that would include a potential training tower, equipment upgrades, and infrastructure upgrades to the firehouse.
So we're making an application, and this could take a year, but $1 million is good for a fire.
It will take a year, most definitely.
That's okay.
We still haven't heard from last year's yet. They have not released the grant awards for the previous year's program, but that's kind of the way this one works.
That money rolling from the grants. Yeah, so I'll make a motion, we approve Resolution 2409, apply for LSA grant for the firehouse upgrade.
It's It's been moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye, motion passes. Next up, we have a motion to approve the final payment to Alan Myers in the amount of $1,143,581.86 for the 2024 road paving program. Dan or John, who's got a little more detail on this?
That'll be me. Thanks, Board Chair. So this is for the first and final payment to Allen Miners for $1,143,581.86. The 2024 roadway improvement program included 11 roads and the paving of the parking lots at the administration building, the firehouse, and the public works building. It should be noted that this is approximately $18,768.25 less than what the awarded amount was.
So I want to say a couple of things here. First off, I'm glad we were able to give the business to Alan Myers, who is a Worcester resident. I know some years they bid on the work, some years they don't. This year they turned out to be the lowest responsible bidder, so I was certainly happy with that. And I could just say anecdotally, we did Milestone. In essence, a lot of the road program this year was the Milestone development, and I heard from several residents that were very pleased with the work that was done over there, and that we don't always hear that. We sometimes hear that there's disruption, and I heard compliments from multiple people regarding they're very happy to see that take place. Does anybody have any questions, comments regarding this particular item?
Nope.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the final payment for Alan A. Myers in the amount of $1,143,581.86 for the 24 road paving program.
So moved and seconded. Is there any public comment regarding the motion on the floor? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye, motion passes. Next up, we have other business. Does anybody wish to bring any other business before the board tonight?
The question, if this would be a John Everett question, is if you could give us an update, and again, Dan's new, but I'm sure he's involved, but the Creba Mill Bridge project, we applied for a grant a number of months, maybe a year ago. The Quarry Hall Road stormwater project and a Mount Kirk project that me and you kind of evolved into cleaning up or straightening out a road. If you can, is there any updates on any of those?
I could provide updates on the last two. The first one was Bowman. They submitted for a grant, and I am not aware if it was awarded yet. Dan might be able to answer that question.
Bridge.
The bridge, correct.
Okay.
Quarry Hall Road, I have not been authorized to start any work with that project yet. The board needs to direct me to do some storm sewer improvements along that road. So if that's something the board would like to do, I could prepare a memo and provide it to the board, and we could discuss it at a later time.
Did we apply for a grant for that one, I believe?
No, we did not.
We did not apply for a grant for that.
Nope. And then the
Mount Kirk, would be part of
Mount
the
Kirk
stormwater
Road,
project?
road extension. Again, that's something that I think the board should discuss to maybe include on the 2025 road program in the future.
You get with Dan and educate him on those three items, please.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Bud? All right.
Mr. Chairman, one other item, the repairs on the building, the church we bought right here. Dan, I'm not sure if you've looked at that file. We purchased that's something, the roof looks like it's getting worse, and, before it gets too bad, we should really look at the restoration that would sort of fallen through the cracks with a change in leadership within the township. So I'll just ask you to put that on your radar.
Yeah, so I did meet with Bob, the Holster Public Works Director, out on site. He had previously put together some numbers for what I guess we would consider historical restoration which is significantly more expensive than normal restoration to make it period accurate. I have directed him to just get some quotes for something that would maybe not be truly historical, but would look the same, and also save the building. There are grant programs, because my understanding is that was a stop on the Underground Railroad in the past. There are federal grant programs that we could look at, and I have looked at in the past for potential funding for a truly historically accurate renovation. If that's something that you'd like some more information on, I can certainly provide it.
maybe we should approach our neighbor and friend, Mr. Bradford. Maybe we can rename it to Matt Bradford Building and get some funds from him.
I got one more point, and this is for Bill McGrain. If there was any thought process in renaming this Farmers Union Hall, do you have any input for the Farmers Union? There was some talk about renaming this Farmers Union Hall instead of Heiser Field, yes. Correct.
Hold on. Time out.
I understand, I'm sorry, all right.
Time out. Bill, if you can share your comments when we get to public comment, we'd love to hear them. In terms of that, the board has not,
I understand, just general comment.
okay. When there's public comment, Bill, we'd love to hear what you have to say on that. You got anything else? You good?
I'm good.
Okay, so next up, folks, we have public comment. Does anybody wish to make any additional public comment for the board? We'll start with you, Bob, and then, sir, I'll take you.
Bob Andor, Worcester. So I will congratulate you for the only thing that I think was done properly done tonight was at least postponing the vote on the Church Road component. So I specifically, and I appreciate your frustration, Rick, as to how that process happened, but that also happens when you don't listen to what other people raise. So specifically, I had some concerns about that and how that was presented. And ultimately, your solution was to use a sledgehammer on a fly instead of using a fly swatter. So number one, it starts off being incorrect, in my opinion, from the beginning, because you say you did a traffic study. And maybe you're using some kind of legal mumbo jumbo where you're trying to use traffic study because the T was small and the S was small. But a traffic study would actually look at volume of traffic, ingress, egress, number of accidents over a period of time, and do all of that. What really happened was they went out and they did an observation, and they did a sightline analysis is what they ultimately ended up giving you. And part of that, their recommendation was, well, you can go from here to here, or you could take it all out. And so you guys just said, no, we'll take it all out, which in my opinion is a punitive solution. You're not trying to address the problem. There's an overkill there. So if you actually look at, and I think this is what maybe perhaps Mr. Betts was trying to get at, but if you actually look at the document that Bowman put together, I have some concerns about how they did their calculations, but I'll just step back and say they're the professionals. I have a lot of respect for Casey and the work that they've done. But the document actually shows a traffic impact triangle. So adopt that, which will limit the parking closest to the intersection. It doesn't take up nearly a significant amount of potential road parking, either for overage, for, as Lou suggested, parties that people may be having, or somebody who has to park a truck there temporarily for whatever the particular condition is. But follow the recommendation that was given to you. And if ultimately the goal was to make the intersection safer because of the standard that they're applying, that's fine, and I'm okay with that, but I never was okay and voiced my concern previously, but you guys just went ahead anyways without taking any of my concerns into consideration. And ultimately, if you're really concerned about intersections, I would say that the standard that they've applied here, you ought to look at everywhere in the township. Because that intersection, if you take every intersection that doesn't have either a four-way stop or a traffic light, that intersection is probably better than 90% or 95% of all the intersections in the township, specifically because of vegetation or other obstructions. So if you apply that standard to every other intersection, you won't even get impact analysis lengths that come close to that. So if you're really concerned about the traffic and what the residents are encountering at intersections, maybe think about applying that everywhere in the township and having the staff do some other further investigation at a majority of the intersections, and then cutting back or forcing residents to remove some of the vegetation so it's safer. Number one. Number two, specifically, and I get that Rome wasn't built in a day, but I specifically raised before my concerns regarding specifically fire hydrant allocations of costs in the budget. Ultimately, you didn't want to deal with the minutia, and you passed that on to the township manager, who did reach out to me, and then I did meet with him. It's now been 3 weeks since I met with him. I don't have an answer. I don't know what the issue is and where the accountability is, but I have some serious concerns based on the meeting that I had with him and the information that he presented to me at that time for what the system should or should not be able to do. And the information that I have suggests that that's not accurate. So again, from an accountability standpoint, I'm looking for answers, and I'm looking for,
Accountability.
I'm sorry?
Accountability.
Accountability. I'm looking for an answer as to why that happens and how it happens, and maybe there's a logical explanation, but I can't come to that at the moment.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm not going to get started on the accounting one. My understanding of the accounting one is there was an explanation. It's fair if you're telling me you don't agree with the explanation. If what you're saying is I was given an explanation, I don't agree with it, then that's fine. But ultimately, there was a method to the accounting that was done that had an accrual. Again, I'm going from memory here, so I want to be careful what I say. I'm not trying to say anything incorrectly, but there was an accrual that was done based on how we would typically receive an invoice. An invoice came in sooner than expected, so they wound up with 2 items that hit. You had accrued for something, and then an invoice showed up, and then they made a correcting entry to that, which is why some of those numbers were moved in particular places. The auditor very clearly said it did not impact the financial statement. There was some discussion as to how that should have been coded. There was agreement. My understanding was there was agreement, but if there wasn't, I'll go back and I will check. But my understanding was there was agreement. If you're saying now I'm not happy with the answer, this is the first time I'm
I
hearing
don't have
that.
an answer. I don't have an answer.
I have an answer if you need it.
What's that?
I have the answer if you need it. I'm welcome.
By all means, Ted.
I'm happy to provide it.
Okay.
I did speak directly to the auditor who worked with our finance director to address this initial issue. The answer I received from the auditor was identical to the answer provided by our finance director, namely that there was a duplicate entry in the line item of the fire hydrant rentals due to the timing in which our annual rental invoices come in from North Penn Water Authority. The other 2 water companies send them monthly. For an unknown reason, North Penn Water Authority sends them annually, generally 3 to 5 months after the close of the fiscal year. So that historically it came in too late for the finance director to assign to the prior year within our system. So our auditor had set up an annual adjustment to counter that and ensure that the proper assigning of that expense. This year, the bill came in a little earlier than it had historically. Again, we're not sure why, and that would be something we could ask North Penn Water Authority. So we were able to, Nicole was able to assign it to the previous year as it should be. Unfortunately, since they had set it up with the knowledge that every other year before that it had come in too late, there was a duplicate entry done that had been suggested previously by the auditor, and in this case it wasn't necessary because it was able to be done correctly this time. So it was discussed with the auditor and the finance director. The root cause was discovered, resolved, and we've addressed it for this year and in the future. All the adjustments were proposed by the auditor, recommended by the auditor, and they're in compliance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles in the United States. All the adjustments are tracked by our financial software. You cannot delete transactions. If you go into our software, you will see transactions that counter other transactions, but nothing can be deleted to hide errors. And that is a general feature of
Understood.
all
It's a
municipal
requirement. You have to
software I
avoid
like.
transactions. You can't delete transactions. But
Correct.
I guess the bigger question is, were you not shared all of that information?
Wasn't shared any of that.
Okay, so ultimately, the outcome here should have been, all of that information should have come to you. If it did not, I apologize, but it should,
Didn't. And so specifically, the issue is, and what Dan just said is, an entry cannot be deleted. And the information that I look for and ask for as part of my right to know has all of those entries, and it's not there. So I'll file another right to know. I would like the information that Dan just gave me,
sure.
and I'll file another right to know with the most current information, and then I'll bring it back to you again next month because it's not there. It's not there. Now, if it gets entered in the next week or from the last time I received my information, which was the end of July, I think in that particular time frame, but those transactions happened before then.
Right.
So, but to answer your question, Rick, I met with Dan 3 weeks ago and I have heard nothing since then. So I appreciate the information coming now, but
It should have been sooner. I understand that
have
now.
any of that.
I understand that. Okay. So sir, did you have a public comment as well you wanted to make? Okay.
Name is Russell Dean. I live in Wheachief. Okay, to start, this parking on, excuse me, the parking on Church Road, it originally started because of a box truck parked on Church Road, and the complaint was that the people couldn't see the grass across the street from their deck. That was the original complaint that we heard of. And then later on, it became people couldn't see when they pulled out of Wheachief. They couldn't see because the truck was in their way and it was blocking their view of traffic coming from either way. There are a couple trucks that park there, yes. The residents of Wheachief, they belong to the residents of Wheachief. Now, it seems to me that there was a complaint made. I don't know if it was you guys or whoever who hired Bowman. Bowman came out and they did a drive-by. They came out and they looked, somebody told them they couldn't see coming out of Wheachief. They did a drive-by, didn't talk to anybody, didn't say anything one way or the other, because we have got no information from anyone about what's going on. It was approved, the deal was approved, and we didn't know about it. But going to the pictures that Bowman has here, it's showing 14 and a half feet back from the curb, which is showing the front of the vehicle back from the curb, when we know that the front of the vehicle is not where you see from. You got another 4 feet back. So that's 18 and a half feet. So you're sitting back, and if this sight line is what it is, that's why you can't see, but nobody stops their car 19 feet back from the curb, 18 feet. They pull up. So sight line is not a problem. I don't know who can't see with the trucks parked there. The person whose truck it belongs to, the one who's the original problem, he spoke to the state police. They told him there was no problem. They couldn't do anything. They asked him to move his truck as far away from the intersection as possible, and he did that. And he thought everything was done. But now we're hearing this, and it's been supposedly already approved, already settled, and it's no, it's nothing that I don't know we can do, and we haven't had our say. I don't know how many people complained about this, but the majority of people that I know, I know of, it doesn't bother them. I don't know who can't see around the trucks or how far they pull out to 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 see the traffic coming in either direction. But to me, I've never had a problem. I've been here over 15 years, and I've never had a problem. I've never heard anybody else say they had a problem pulling out onto Church Road. Now it's Bowman. Like I said, they did a drive-by. They just rode by, took some pictures, and said, "Hey, this is what it is." But people living in Wheat Chief, I don't know if anyone is having this problem. Now, there may be one or two. Okay, I can understand that. But the other problem is you're eliminating all of the parking. When you have an event, you have a Thanksgiving a meal, and you have two or three different houses having that Thanksgiving meal. Parking in Wheat Chief is very tight. And so people, when we have those things, you have to park out on Church Road. Now, where are those people supposed to park? Coming to your house for a celebration, there's nowhere else in the neighborhood to park. You'd have to park 2 or 3 blocks away. So, uh, I mean, this impact on Wheat Chief development would be substantial. I mean, when we have the streets paved, and which we just had 2 years ago, I think it was. We had the streets paved. On one side of the development had to park out on Church Road, and then the other side, when they did their side, the other side had to park out on Church Road. So where do we go? I mean, where do we park in those situations? You can't park on Germantown. If you can't park on Church, where do you go? Skywalker Street Lane? It's a quarter mile away. So I mean, this decision is having a detrimental effect on our neighborhood, on our development, and for it to be just shoved down our throats and we're forced to deal with it, I think there should be some sort of study, some environmental, whatever you want to call it, study to see how the effect is on Wheat Chief, because Wheat Chief is the one who is the only one affected by this. There is no other development. The other houses are way down the street. Wheat Chief is the only one affected by this. And when, like I said, you have holidays, you have parties, you have things going on, everybody has to park on Church Road. So if this goes through, it's going to cause a heck of a problem with the people in Wheat Chief. And that's pretty much what it is.
Okay. Russell, we appreciate your comments.
Okay? Just let you know, and like I said, I don't know how many people are complaining, but I don't know, I don't know who it is.
Okay. Fair enough. Ma'am?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Marilyn Reese, and I am a Wheat Chief resident. With all due respect to Mr. Russell, I do not agree with his statements. The board has been transparent, professional, and has opened up this conversation for several months. We were given the opportunity to speak and give our opinion about this concern in our development. I also want to thank the interim township manager, Jay Finnegan, who constantly communicated with me concerning this concern, and the new current township manager, Dan, who has returned emails promptly and professionally. The exit on Church Road is a danger. It is a serious accident-prone area. Vehicles have their um, views blocked. There's a visibility concern, and it is dangerous. This has been brought before the board previously. A professional, detailed traffic study confirmed this concern. One of my other concerns as an educator is there is a school bus stop there. I have witnessed cars and the school bus driver in conflict as they're coming back and forth. There's more than a box truck on that Church Road. There is a large cab truck that you just cannot see over if you are turning to the right. Um,
I'm sorry, what kind of truck?
There is a large cab truck
Cab
in
truck?
addition,
Cab.
C-A-B.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Like
I'm
a
sorry.
Truck
It's hard to hear in here, that's why.
We've bad
that
acoustics.
is also along with the box truck. So you have two large trucks blocking that view. I do sympathize with the hardworking people who own those trucks. And I respect their work ethic. However, I think that they have to find alternative means of parking their vehicles. One of our residents owns a boat. The boat is not parked on Church Road. The boat is parked in a private area, pays $50 a month, which is a lot of money, I know, and then has transportation into the development. If there are gatherings in the neighborhood, I have seen Esky Park being utilized with people then actually, one of the homes actually had people valet to their homes. Yes, it would be a hassle, but it would be a safety, it would be just a safer environment as we're exiting our neighborhood. We are saying that the majority of the people don't care about what happens. I disagree. The majority of our neighborhood do care about what is happening, and they would like to see some type of parking restriction on that corner. I think I've said what I want. I do have difficulty that at the 12th hour, after we've gone through this entire process, that it is questioned. These concerns should have been brought up along the way, that you're flipping through your paperwork, trying to comprehend what is happening, disappoints me. So I'm asking the board to, yes, take another look, but then also to please pass an ordinance that will protect our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. We appreciate your comments. Ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Robin Pinkney, and I too reside at 82 Wheat Chief. I was one of the first owners there, and I've been there for over 25 years. There has always been parking on Church Road. And I do agree with you in regards to not eliminating all parking on Church Road. Because as my previous neighbor said, when we do have events, it's already tight in Wheat Chief. So when we have other events, there is no additional parking. If something is being done in our development, we have nowhere else to park. So I do appreciate you taking time to reconsider to saying just no parking on street road. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is it- Come forward, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Phyllis Dean, and I live at 80. First, I want to thank you for considering the residents of Wheat Chief. We probably missed some of the meetings where they made a decision that we can't park on Church Road. The last meeting I was at, it was stated that Church Road, Wheat Chief didn't own it, okay? Um, Not being able to park on Church Road will cause a lot of problems for the residents of Wheat Chief. We have parties, dinners, everything, and we have no place to park, as you heard previously. I can't ask my guests to go park at Esky and thumb a ride to my house. It doesn't work. Esky is not like that close, okay? So I'm just saying that for you to eliminate all the parking on Church Road will create a problem for most of us residents who have a life on Wheat Chief. Okay, thank you, and thank you for looking out for the
Thank you.
residents.
We appreciate the comments.
Hi, my name is Mary Palladino, and I'm a resident of Wheat Chief. I've lived there for over 20 years. The parking problem is a pretty recent one because of the trucks. We've had cars parked there over those years, and safety has not been an issue. But I can tell you my own self that I have had some close calls when the trucks are there trying to pull out, as have many of my neighbors. So I'd like to propose perhaps that in discussing this further, you might invite the board of Wheat Chief to be involved in the conversation so that our residents are informed and hopefully can come to some compromise here that would satisfy the needs of the residents as well as the safety of the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. We appreciate your comments. Does anybody else wish to make public comment to the board tonight? Bill?
Bill McGrain again. So, as someone who works in the private sector, but I've been a board member of many of the nonprofits in the area, developed a lot of budgets. This process that we're going through, I find the 8-page statement of revenue and expenditures to be a very helpful piece of information. Through the third quarter, you've got a year-to-date on each column. So everything in your end, you've got a percent real in this. This is the package that's in the back and online. So anything that falls in the 70 to 80%, unless it's snow removal, was well budgeted. You're going to hit your mark, and I would budget conservatively. So I'm not saying it needs to be exactly 75% for any particular item, but when I hear Bob's frustration, when you reconcile the general fund statement, which is also in the package, and this revenue and expenditures. Typical, they don't reconcile. And when Steve brings up the Dutchy Church on this page had a real, actual $117.37 last year. In this statement has a real $117.37. Okay, great. In this page, 2024 budget is $1,560. On this 2024 budget is $600. So I don't know how that could be. If you're giving us, now I don't know that this is an accounting ledger or part of your accounting system, and this I believe is. So if this is what Bob's frustration is about numbers just floating around in the nether for us, I'm with him on that they should be clear. You bring up Dutchy Church. Dutchy Church is currently budgeted on this page for $1,560 again in 2025. It's not noted on your actuals, but it does give the projection for the end of the year to come in under the $600 budgeted. So that's a little more. If it's a historical thing, maybe it isn't. That's where the percent real, I find, is as a manager of people who build budgets, is a useful item. So I just wanted to share that. One other thing, question I had, going through the actuals, on page 7, I believe it is, 7? Page 8, we have the parks category, had a budget this year of $56,738. There's a line item called Other Parks, and it has a budget of $9,300. And I wonder what you have specifically budgeted for Heidner Park, Mount Kirk Park, Sunnybrook Park, and Heiser Park. Multiple other parks. So what are the other parks? I've been here a long time. That you're expending money. You've spent $2,100 in these other parks. I don't know what these other parks are.
I don't know off the top of my head, Bill, but we can certainly find out.
Okay, because in the Public Works report, Nike Park has been shifted from the parks category to the miscellaneous. And that might be to this deed restriction or whatever reasoning it might be.
Right.
That was the only other, and it would be one park. So as we're sitting, reviewing the actuals and looking towards the budget, just trying to kind of pick apart
Sure.
where money is, where money isn't. All right.
Fair enough. I know that in the packets, we get every month reports from the different departments, which may or may not match up. We also budget, we have 13 budgets, so sometimes you'll see numbers that are not synced up to some different reports just based on, but again, I don't want to, I understand the concern. I understand sort of getting all of those in sync. So whatever we're putting out there has consistency across the different pieces. That should be the case, and that's certainly what we're working towards and striving for.
Okay, great. Follow up with a comment made about Community Day and Community Day being rained out and the weekend rained out. We, the Farmers Union, in conjunction with the Historic Society had a flea market. We had a horse show. Friends of Bert left, but Friends of Worcester had a information table, and we invited a number of other nonprofits to come by and try to pick up the pieces from the rain out. But in the conversations between those nonprofits and the community, we will discuss with Mr. Domeno that we would like to be involved in the process and planning of future community days, that we were not involved in this process. Now, I understand you were in a transition and it was handed off to someone with whatever instructions he was given, but as part of the community, we'd like to have some say in community.
I agree. I think we're in agreement on that.
Final thing, not for sure where we are with Heiser Field and whether I know I was pushed for a number of years to find alternative locations and thoughts and bring plans. So we've got another one for you. So I will share that.
We'll take it.
Thank you very much.
What?
We're homeless.
You don't want this one?
Any refrigerator boxes?
What do you give it? You don't want it? You don't like it? Well, then what are you giving it to me for? Come on, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. As always, we appreciate the comments. Does anybody else wish to make any final public comment before the board tonight? Okay, ma'am. If you've already made comment, we would just ask you to be quick.
This is really a question, so I will be quick, but
Okay.
I think everybody's been given time, so I don't think I should be rushed. But at any rate, I want to know, is this the place that we would bring a concern? I'm not sure of the street. It's like 2 blocks down going towards the hospital. The traffic light, it looks like it's giving way, like it's like wood or tree. It looks like it's starting to come apart. And
So are you talking about on Germantown Pike, a couple of blocks beyond Church Road? Is that,
I think it is.
or are you talking in the other direction heading towards Einstein?
No, heading towards Einstein, and it's on the passenger side. It's like, you know where, I think it's where the new houses are on your left, and that traffic, no, where the Veterans Hospital is at that traffic light. And it looks like it's coming. I went to the, someone's office, Bradford's office, and I think they said they don't have anything to do with it. But maybe if I can get somebody's name and I can get the street.
So if you go to our website, well, let's do this. One, if you take a minute, so Dan is our township manager. You can give him the information. It may or may not fall within Worcester's, our envelope. I'm not sure if it's on Germantown Pike, it may not. But if you just take a minute to talk to Dan, give him that information. This is certainly a place where you can share it, but we may not be the right
Right, maybe
destination.
lead me to
Yep.
the right department.
Fair enough.
Right, I think that's it. And in regards to the parking, again, I know that everybody's concerned about that Church Road parking, but how about doing something with the deers? If we stop building, maybe we can have somewhere to go.
That's the game commission. We can't help you with the deer. Okay. Does anybody else have any public comment for the board? Seeing none, then motion to adjourn. Thank you, folks.